You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Dan Byrne in our Vancouver newsroom on a busy afternoon. So, did you feel it? As we've been reporting, a 5.4 magnitude earthquake struck parts of BC's south coast this afternoon, rattling people from Peachland to Metro Vancouver all the way down to parts of Washington State. For more on this, Rafferty Baker joins us live. Rafferty, you were at your desk in our big newsroom when it happened. What did you feel?
Dan, that's right. So first of all, before I felt anything, I heard a deep rumble, and this is a big concrete building, and I'm wondering, is someone dragging something across the floor? Has a truck hit the building? What exactly is that? Moments later, start to feel a tiny bit of a rattle, and everyone in the newsroom, lots of excitement. What was that? A couple of little shrieks, and everyone's under the desk, including myself, where we waited out as one is supposed to. And after a period of waiting, a little bit of confusion before someone stands up, takes charge, and says, let's get out of the building. And you can see on the tower cam from our building here at CBC what that rattle looked like. Just a bit of shaking there. You can see through the rainy afternoon. That was at about 1:30 today.
So what more do we know about the quake? And yes, that was a number of minutes of people wondering what the heck was going on in the newsroom. What more do we know about the tremor itself?
So at just before 1:30, Earthquakes Canada says initially they said a 5.1 magnitude earthquake struck sort of about 30 kilometers west of Squamish, which is also about that far northeast of Sechelt. And so in the we don't have the map up on the monitor here, but if you know the geography, there it is. We've got Sechelt Inlet here, and then there's Salmon Inlet. So it's way up there. It's a fairly remote area, but of course, Vancouver's right here, the island, and behind our little image there is Squamish. So if you were in any of those centers, you certainly felt it.
Rafferty, you have to jump in. Apologies.
Yep.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Well, some people say it's the most prominent earthquake they've felt in some time. Here's what we heard from people in Vancouver earlier.
To be honest, I was sitting inside my office and then I was kind of sleepy, and then I felt my chair was just moving. What's going on? And I picked up the phone, I called my wife. She was sitting in the car waiting for the kids. And she said, yeah, I felt that even the car was like moving. What?
I don't know, I was just drying my hair and I thought someone on the ceiling, like below us, was just like bashing the floor, and I had no idea it was an earthquake. And then like Lee says,
nothing moved in the apartment. It was just like a gentle tremble that went on for like 30 seconds to a minute. But yeah, it was just strange.
Crazy.
You could feel the floor moving.
It.
It's the first time we've ever felt an earthquake, so kind of wasn't expecting it.
At first it started off like small, and it just like grew, and I was like, what the hell? And then it stopped, and I was like, oh, was that an earthquake? And some of my friends didn't feel it, but another of my friend, he did feel it, and I was like, that's kind of weird. I don't know.
What happened in the stadium? Did the game keep going on?
Yeah, it kept going on. Yeah, no stop. I don't think many people even noticed it.
The BC Centre for Disease Control is reporting influenza activity is high and continues to rise in this province. It says the number of positive cases across the country has matched the highest value recorded since 2020, with a 29% rise in flu type A cases compared to 2 months ago.
We see influenza continuing to increase week over week, with as many as almost a third of all people tested for influenza are turning up positive.
The CDC says influenza cases in BC are at interseasonal highs. It reminds you it's not too late to get vaccinated if you haven't yet, and you're asked to stay home if you're sick. The Health-Sick Nation on BC's Central Coast has voted to adopt a written constitution based on traditional legal systems. The nation says the written constitution lays out a legal framework for health-sick governance, rights, responsibilities, as well as lawmaking on decisions that had previously been left to the courts. This follows the about 2 decades of development and consultation, including 6 months of engagement with over 2,000 health-sick members in Bella Bella, Nanaimo, and Vancouver. You were up to date on CBC News BC. I'm Dan Burrett. For news anytime, including more on the earthquake, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. We'll have much more on those stories at 6. See you then.
Karen, thank you. And thanks so much for joining us here for On the Coast this afternoon. I'm Gloria Makurenko. And what a day. Magnitude 5.1 earthquake shook much of the south coast just before 1:30 this afternoon. It was centered near Seashelt. It was about 1 kilometer deep from what we're hearing from earthquake experts. There are no reports of damage or injuries and no tsunami danger. There was also one very small aftershock felt. It was about a 1.9 magnitude aftershock, about an hour and a half afterwards. And we are hearing that is still a possibility. Again, the possibility of aftershocks. And we're going to bring you the latest with Emergency Preparedness Minister Kelly Green in just a moment. We'll also check in with meteorologist Russ Lacate. He was part of the crew here at CBC when we all evacuated the building when we felt the shake a little earlier on. And of course, the earthquake is not the only big story this week. We'll check in with new MLAs on their first week in the legislature. So another busy day. We're here along with Rob Zimmerman, who's here from the Vancouver Newsroom. What other stories are you watching? Is there another story
Well,
today?
sort of. And along the same lines, people who use the backcountry are being warned about dangerous avalanche conditions in many regions of the province. Genome BC has announced $1.5 million in funding for 2 research projects focused on avian flu. And Mounties in Fort St. John are investigating graffiti sprayed on a Treaty 8 First Nation building as a hate crime. More local news coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Okay, thank you. And Steve Jung is along with us as well. Lots going on the roads. What can you tell us about traffic?
Well, Gloria, we're getting reports of a crash eastbound on Kingsway at Joyce Street, currently blocking the left lane. In Richmond, we're getting reports of a crash on Highway 99 southbound between the Highway 91 overpass and the Westminster Highway overpass. It's currently blocking the left lane. Watch out for a crash northbound on the Alex Fraser Bridge at about mid-span in the left lane. Keep an eye out for debris and any crews who are on scene. We're also dealing with a stall in North Vancouver, eastbound on Highway 1, blocking the left lane near the Mountain Highway off-ramp. Definitely looks like the rain we're seeing outside is having more of an effect than the earlier earthquake. We also got an email here from Joy, who writes in from Gibsons, who says, she felt the quake, but for a minute there, I thought it was my neighbor at his renovations again, but soon realized it was the quake. It felt like a train hitting the side of my house. First reaction was to grab the dog and leash and phone and wallet and car keys and run outside. I know, wrong thing to do. Must get my grab-and-go bag together and revisit a plan that I had years ago with my family that live here on the coast. This is jarring me out of complacency. Thanks very much for writing in on that one, Joy.
We have had so many messages from right across the region. I mean, yes, really strongly felt in the Seashelt and Sunshine Coast area, but we heard from Abbotsford as well. Lots of people around the City Hall area. But again, right here downtown, I felt it in the newsroom, Steve. You were just outside, like less than a block away.
I was outside of our door,
I see.
our main door.
Oh,
I was on the exact
close.
same, and nothing, but yeah.
No, it's interesting. And we do want to hear from you, your stories, your reaction to today's shaking. On the coast at cbc.ca is our email address. On the coast at cbc.ca. You can also send us a text, 236-330-2623, 236-330-2623. You're also welcome to call in. Yeah, we can put you on the radio. Call us toll free at 1-800-825-5950. What was that experience like for you? What's top of mind for you right now? 1-800-825-5950. We're here with Russ Lacate, our meteorologist as well. A very good afternoon to you.
Hello, Gloria.
So we were all huddling out in the rain, kind of looking a little bewildered after that shaking. What went through your mind, Russ, when the shaking
I got to be perfectly honest with you here, Gloria. Before I was a meteorologist, I was a geophysicist. And the first thing I did in the middle of the earthquake was I'm online and immediately looking at UBC, trying to get some information right away. And then somebody in the background screamed at me, "Get under the desk!" And then we were ushered out of the building, of course.
But did you look around the room? Because some people did get under the desk right away.
Most of us were, yeah,
and then
absolutely.
I had guests standing by, and I was thinking, well, where do we bring them under the desk? What do we? It was really one of those
situations. What's the priority here?
Well, you end up kind of freezing in motion. It's like, I don't know which way to go here.
I love the comment from Joy from Gibson's there about, grabbing her priorities, and the first thing was the dog. That's the same in my house. Absolutely. I feel much the same way. So I just want to mention something that I looked up here, Gloria. There was a study came out in 2019 from a PhD candidate at UBC, in fact, in the geophysics department, and it was specifically about the Juan de Fuca fault line, the Juan de Fuca plate, which is subducting underneath the North American plate. And they've identified, over 30 years of data, a cluster of deeply seated earthquakes along Texada Island, very close to Seychelles, and they've actually identified a more significant portion of the fault line, about 10 kilometers long, under the Strait of Georgia. So very interesting to be reading that study from 2019, which has been fairly prescient, of what we experience today.
Well, it's so true. It's so true. And it was interesting. Just a few days ago, I was talking to an expert at Western Washington University, talking about how she was mapping. She's been working on this project for years, mapping the region seismically. And she's got a whole website. It's metrovanmicromap.ca that you can go on and you can see what the potential effects of, depending on where you are in Metro Vancouver, they've got like 26 or 28 maps on there, and you can see the potential effects. So we'd had that conversation just 2 days ago. So she came back on the show today and we're just talking like, isn't that, there you go, there's the timing.
Right
so
up my alley.
I wanted to flag that to people who are listening who might be interested in going online and checking it out for themselves, metrovanmicromap.ca. But she brought up something else that was kind of important, Russ, and that was, yes, we're doing a great job in telling people who's feeling what and how strong was it where you were, and sharing it here on national radio, on the public broadcaster. But it's also important to register and go online at Earthquakes Canada, the Earthquakes Canada webpage. They want that data. Like, we're not collecting data, we're collecting stories and experiences
very
here.
much so.
They want the data. So she's encouraging everyone, go on that Earthquakes Canada webpage and report what you felt. So I think those are a couple of things I wanted to underscore as well.
Gloria.
I mentioned we were out huddled in the rain there. It is really feeling the moisture today, aren't we, here on the West Coast?
Yeah, we certainly are. Yeah, we'll sort of pivot from earthquake maps to weather maps here in Gloria. It's a wet one out there right now. As Steve was mentioning, it's impacting traffic somewhat. I think the rain actually tapers off a little bit tonight and Saturday morning. So early risers tomorrow. It's not dreadfully wet, but, there'll be some light rain around. We have got some potential downpours moving in here around midday tomorrow into the afternoon. I think it will be torrentially wet across Metro Vancouver. High of about 10, maybe 11 degrees. Sunday's an encore performance. Not terribly wet in the morning, but getting progressively wetter as the day wears on, and a high of 12 degrees. Monday and Tuesday, the particulars of the forecast each day, I haven't really got them hammered out yet, but it looks like one more significant rain and wind event, and it's Monday evening through the night into Tuesday morning. When we're done with that, we're looking at a pleasant, calmer, and partly sunny pattern. That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week.
Okay, Wednesday, Thursday, because my 5-day forecast only took me up to Tuesday, and I was saying,
we're giving you an extra day.
Doesn't this look gray and grim?
Insider special.
No, it's true. And you were talking about your first reaction after feeling the shaking today. You want, I need more information. You're on the commuter. You're not under the desk. You're not out of the building. And I was talking to a couple of students in our last half hour. They called in, someone in elementary school and someone in high school, and it was kind of over before it started, and the teacher, I think that was an earthquake, but I was talking about the earthquake drills, and I said, aren't you supposed to stop, drop, and roll? And actually it's stop, drop, and cover for an earthquake. Stop, drop, and roll for a fire situation, right?
Okay, good
and
point,
stop,
yes.
drop. Someone wrote in and corrected me on that one. So stop, drop, and cover. But it was just interesting to gauge different people's reaction in the moment.
I think in this industry, we're so wired to just gathering information immediately that your first instinct isn't to put your hand over top of your own head or to get under the desk. It's really to try to dig a little deeper. But we quickly came to our senses there.
Yes, we did. And it was good to hear from Johanna Wagstaff, our resident meteorologist as well. She was actually not working today, but she knows.
I was joking with her yesterday. She said, Thursday's my new Friday. And then, of course, when the earthquake hit today, I'm like, no, it's not.
Okay. Thank you very much, Russ Lecate. That's meteorologist Russ Lecate, and you'll see more of him on the CBC television news at 6 tonight. We've been hearing from many of you throughout the day. We've got Brandon on the line right now from Gibson's. Brandon, hi there. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, good afternoon.
What went through your mind when you felt the shaking today or heard about it?
Well, I was actually working on the water, so I didn't feel it. But from once I called some family members and heard about it, it kind of reminded me of when I was in New Zealand, Christchurch, during the big earthquake, February 22nd, 2011.
Oh, dear.
Which
Oh,
would
that
be-
was
Yeah,
significant.
it was known as like the big one, and it would be the big one if it happened here. And I just have a few kind of things to point out to people as to what it would be like, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so one interesting thing that happens is right away everyone got on their cell phones and they tried calling their loved ones, but no one could get through because the towers were damaged and the whole system got completely overloaded. There were no texts, no calls, no one communicating for about an hour at least. I think it actually went longer than that. So having a plan is very important. And the next point to make is that every single person got in their vehicles and tried driving from A to B. And in an earthquake where the roads are destroyed, where all the bridges have to be inspected, even a smallish earthquake, bridges would likely have to be inspected. They're closing off all the bridges. It would be rush hour traffic times 1,000. Standstill. That means one thing that I noticed, I got in my car and I tried driving in New Zealand and I couldn't even make it 50 meters. And I looked in my rear view mirror and there was emergency vehicles stuck in traffic, not being able to rescue people. So I immediately just pulled over, drove onto someone's lawn and buried the keys. And it was a lot faster just to walk to where I had to go, even though it was about 15 kilometers. I got there way faster than if I had driven.
That is really good advice. That is really good advice. So what was going through your mind, post earthquake, once you heard about the news today? Again, you said you were on the water, so you didn't feel it. But, what in terms of a wake-up call for Vancouver?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a message for people. Do not get in your vehicles. You would be clogging up traffic. If there was a big one where they had to shut bridges, you'd be preventing emergency services from being able to actually rescue people. And it would just be an absolute nightmare.
Brandon, thank you. Thank you so much for calling in. Those are really important messages to underscore today. That's Brandon in Gibsons. And we would like to hear from you, 604-669-3733. Or you can call us toll free at 1-800-825-5950. The BC Earthquake Alliance is a not-for-profit society dedicated to promoting awareness and enabling preparedness for earthquakes and tsunamis across the province. And Naomi Yamamoto is the board chair and the BC Earthquake Alliance. Naomi, hi there, and very good afternoon to you.
Hi, Gloria.
So what were some of the first reactions that you and people in your alliance received?
Well, we reached out to media to make sure that if there was a resource that you wanted, we would be able to direct you to it or provide it. But I can tell you, I got a lot of text messages from friends and family who felt it. And I didn't. I'm in Naramata right now, so we didn't feel it here. But certainly, most of the folks in the Lower Mainland did.
Right. Okay. Well, we're talking about earthquake preparedness. It's very important as part of this overall discussion. I don't know if you just heard the phone call from Brandon, who had been in New Zealand for the big earthquake there, and his advice: no calls, no texts in that situation. So have a plan and don't get into your vehicle. What's top of mind for you when we're talking about first things you do?
First things you do is you drop, cover your head, and hold on. Because if it's a larger earthquake, you're not going to be able to stay in one spot unless you're holding on, say, to the table leg. So drop, cover, and hold on. And Gloria, I've been watching CBC and listening, and I've been hearing people who say, the odd person who says they've run to a door frame, a doorway, and that is not what you do. So that's really important that we dispel that myth that you are safe in a door frame. You drop underneath a desk or a table. And if you're not available, if you can't do that, and you're in a tower, or an office building, stay away from the exterior walls where there's windows that could break and you could be injured by that.
Oh, I've got to get this into my brain for sure and spread it wide. Drop, cover, and hold on. Drop, cover, and hold on. Well, that was interesting. We talked to some school kids they didn't even go under their desks. I mean, by the time they realized it was an earthquake, it was kind of done, and the similar things happened here in our newsroom. Some people did get under desks, but most people did not. Okay, that's your immediate reaction, and it's something that we have got to keep top of mind. I understand. Now, what kinds of things, we're talking about having a go bag ready, maybe people have their vehicles or their bag. What kinds of things should we endeavor to have with us in some form at all times?
Well, just generally, in a grab and go bag, because you can't make it too heavy, because it's meant to be taken and with you, but you want to have some food in there, something with protein, some protein bars. You want to have some water, batteries, extra batteries, a hang crank flashlight. So that doesn't require batteries. You just have to crank it and it'll light up. Maybe a small first aid kit would be good. If you have a spare set of reading glasses, some people can't do a lot of things without the reading glasses. And if you don't happen to have one, you're handicapped in a way. If we lose electricity, you won't be able to buy anything at a store unless you have cash. So cash and small bills is not a bad thing. A copy of your emergency plan if you have it. Those type of things are things that if you get them ready now, they're ready to go. Now that's different from your emergency kit that you leave at your house, which should, supply you with water and food and things like that for a week to 2 weeks. So obviously you want to take that with you, but your grab and go bag is, you can put in a knapsack, an extra collar for your pet. And don't forget pet food for your pets in your grab and go bag if you've got a little furry one with you. So yeah, those are things that you can check the Prepared BC website. They have a nice list of items that you should be putting into those emergency kits.
Prepared BC website. Okay, I'm collecting websites and sources of information and underscoring the fact that people are encouraged, if they did feel some shaking where they were, to report that. Go to the Earthquakes Canada webpage and report that so we can collect some data on today's earthquake. Naomi, really great to connect with you. Thank you.
Likewise, Gloria. Thanks.
Naomi Yamamoto is the board chair of the BC Earthquake Alliance. And you are listening to On the Coast this Friday afternoon. We were thinking, Steve, we were going to be talking about the big hockey game last night. And then the room shook and much of the region shook just before 1:30 this afternoon. So we've been hearing from a lot of people. It's also Friday afternoon. So what's going on the roads?
A lot's going on the roads right now, though it does look like it has more to do with the wet and rainy weather we have outside rather than the shaking. In Vancouver, there's a crash eastbound on Kingsway at Joyce Street, blocking the left lane. This one came as a report from one of our listeners. Thank you very much for the info. In Richmond, a crash on Highway 99 southbound between the Highway 91 overpass and the Westminster Highway overpass. It's blocking the left lane. Earlier today, we were watching a crash northbound on the Alex Fraser Bridge at about mid-span in the left lane, and it looks like this crash is actually blocking the left lane both southbound and northbound, and it happened at the south end. Possibly two separate crashes here, but it's causing huge issues for the Alex Fraser Bridge. It is not looking like a good choice this afternoon, so use an alternate route if you're able to. In Surrey, there's a crash southbound on 140th Street and 104th Avenue in the right lane. Crews are on scene, and we're also seeing a stall on the McGill Street on-ramp to Highway 1 westbound, so as you're heading onto the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, it's blocking the left lane and causing some very significant delays for drivers trying to get to the Ironworkers. That earlier stall in North Vancouver, though, eastbound on Highway 1, it was blocking the left lane near the Mountain Highway off-ramp. That's been cleared. I'll have more coming up in just a few minutes.
Steve, thank you very much for that. Okay, 23 minutes past 4 o'clock right now. The earthquake isn't the only top story today. The first week of the BC Legislative Assembly just wrapped up in Victoria. And with us today, we have two newly elected MLAs. Alaya Warbus is the MLA for Chilliwack Cultus Lake, is a member of the BC Conservative Party. A very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
And Rob Botterill is the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands, is a member of the BC Green Party. Rob, welcome to On the Coast.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay, Alaya Warbus, before we break down this first week of the legislature, let's talk about the earthquake. Did you feel it?
Thankfully, I did not feel the effects of the earthquake. I'm still here on the island attending to some family ceremony. So I did not feel it, but my family did. And yeah, great to be here with you, Gloria. My name is Alia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And MLA Botterill, did you feel the earthquake today?
Well, I'm in Sydney at our constituency office, and it was all quiet, but I was on a call with my colleague Jeremy Valeri at the other Green MLA, and he certainly felt it. He was in Squamish.
I see. Okay. Well, what goes through your mind though when you hear about a fairly significant shaking in our region?
Yeah, well, for me anyway, it just reminds me that we live in an active seismic area, and we really need to keep an eye on that as we look at home construction and all the things we do to make sure we're prepared for the unpredictable world we live in these days.
Alia, what about for you?
I just think that life is precious, and we're here another day, and I'm happy everybody's safe.
Okay, well, let's get down to business, because that's what both of you had to do, along with many others at the legislature in Victoria, the first week. What was it like for you, Alia?
For me, it was so many emotions all packed into one. There was a lot of elation, I would say nerves, not knowing what to expect. This being my first time sitting in the legislature, a lot of energy building up to these first moments, sitting with all of the other MLAs on my team, and of course, the Greens in opposition and the NDP that sits across from us. And to be honest, a lot of built up energy, and it just felt so good to really just rip the Band-Aid off and get the first week over with. To be honest, it's good to just know what to expect now a little bit more and get that experience out of the way so we can continue good work.
It's got to start somewhere, right? It's got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Rob Botterill, what was it like for you this first week?
Well, I think you've captured it really well. For me, it was the end of a long wait, and certainly just after being elected, there was lots and lots and lots of preparation. But by the time we got to February, it was, let's get into the legislature and let's do the work that we were elected to do. So it was a great week in terms of actually, as you mentioned, getting down to business. And the previous week we went to MLA school, so we had a bit of a forewarning of how it would all work, and I think it went really well.
What happens at MLA school?
Oh, we get guidance on and simulations of the use of the rules and the procedures and everything. And it was funny, in the simulation we debated a bill to outlaw vanilla ice cream, and of course you don't.
That got heated.
Got to know all the rules.
I hope it didn't melt. I hope it didn't melt. Well, it's interesting. You're saying getting down to business. Alia Warbus, this is your first week as a BC Conservative MLA. What are your priorities for this year ahead?
My priorities are the priorities of my constituents, the people that voted me in, and really all the people that I represent from Chilliwack, Cultus Lake. And when I became interested to even accept the nomination and the candidacy to follow, my priorities were about improving the community that I seen deteriorate around me, the town that I grew up in, Chilliwack, and of course, all of the issues that we as Indigenous people have faced for a long, long time, the social determinants of health that we've struggled with our own members, but to see the larger society struggle the way it has. It's
Okay,
been
that's
it's been,
you know what? I'm rushing you through because I'm got one eye on the clock here, and I would like
okay,
to
no
hear
worries.
from
Yeah,
Rob
but
Botterill.
in
What?
short, in short, those things.
Okay, I appreciate that. We're going to have opportunities to speak again. This is just a getting acquainted kind of a conversation. Rob Botterill, top of mind for you for this legislative year, and it's got to be quick.
Top of mind for me is to make sure that as we tackle the threat of tariffs and everything happening south of the border, that we actually take the opportunity to build an economy of the future and make sure people are taken care of, and that we don't sacrifice the climate in doing that.
Well, these media interviews are also a part of your new role. You've gone through MLA school. You've passed your first interview. We appreciate your time, and really nice to meet you both.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thanks for the time, Gloria.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Alia Warbus is the MLA for Chilliwack Cultus Lake, a member of the BC Conservatives. Rob Botterill, MLA for Saanich North and the Islands, also a member of the BC Green Party. You are listening to On the Coast on CBC Radio 1. Do stay with us. We've got more coverage of this aftermath of an earthquake earlier today. We are going to hear from the Emergency Preparedness Minister, Kelly Green.
This is CBC News from Vancouver. Good afternoon, I'm Robert Zimmerman. There are no reports of damage, but widespread reports of shaking after a 5.1 magnitude earthquake with its epicenter close to the Lower Mainland. It was centered about 23 kilometers northeast of Seashelt and struck before 1:30 this afternoon. John Cassidy is a Victoria seismologist. He says heavily populated areas missed the worst of it.
The earthquake itself appears to be in a relatively remote region, so the closest communities were 20 kilometers or so away from the earthquake, which, and I suspect there weren't very many people really close to the epicenter, so which is good, because the shaking drops off quickly as you move away from an earthquake.
He says the early results indicate the quake was shallow. BC Ferry says the Horseshoe Bay terminal was temporarily evacuated as a precaution to allow teams to inspect the infrastructure. It was reopened about an hour later. People who use the backcountry are being warned about dangerous avalanche conditions in many regions of the province. Ryan Buehler with Avalanche Canada says storms moving in this weekend are bringing warmer temperatures, creating dangerous conditions on the mountain after a cold, dry couple of months.
After prolonged periods of cold and dry conditions through January and February, we have seen multiple weak layers form within the snowpack. Now that we are seeing new storm snow accumulating in the mountains, we are expecting some of these weak layers to wake up, and dangerous avalanche conditions should be expected.
Those heading out to the backcountry are being urged to plan ahead, train, and pack essentials for their trip. BC's Economic Development Minister says the government plans to enter next week's meeting with other provinces prepared to make substantive changes to its interprovincial trade barriers. Diana Gibson says Canadian jurisdictions are committed to reducing barriers. She says she met virtually today with her provincial counterparts and says there was an incredible energy and commitment to reduce trade barriers within the country. Local researchers are hoping to better understand how avian flu is transmitted and evolves through a new grant from Genome BC. Nearly $1.5 million will go towards two projects that will focus on wind transmission, blood tests, wastewater surveillance, and genomic analysis. The BC Centre for Disease Control will lead the studies. The organization's Dr. Linda Huang says scientists will use lessons learned from the COVID pandemic.
You need to be able to detect cases quickly. You need to understand the impact on the population. You need to be able to, monitor, and wastewater has been a very valuable tool for COVID-19. And then you need to be able to understand how to respond.
Dr. Huang says the funding is for 1 year and they are hoping to have findings before wild bird migrations start in the fall. Mounties in Fort St. John are investigating graffiti sprayed on a Treaty 8 First Nation building as a hate crime. Hannah Peterson has more.
Marlene Roy had just finished meetings at her office in Fort St. John on Sunday when she was sent pictures of swastikas and profanities spray painted on the building.
It was horrifying, upsetting that there's still that kind of mindset around the city of Fort St. John.
Roy is the executive director of the Treaty 8 Tribal Association, which provides advisory services to 6 First Nations in northeastern BC. She says staff were also targeted while trying to remove the graffiti.
And while they were cleaning it, someone drove by and yelled, "Hail Hitler."
BC's Indigenous Relations Minister Christine Boyle says it's important to stand against acts of hate.
Hurtful to everyone, and it takes us backwards as a province.
Fort St. John Mayor Lilia Hansen calls the vandalism unacceptable in an open statement, saying it goes against the values of the community. Roy says she has received support, including offers to paint a mural on the wall, but she wants to see more community education to prevent racism in the region. Hannah Peterson, CBC News, Prince George.
The Heiltsuk Nation has approved the adoption of a written constitution for the First Nation on BC's Central Coast. Nearly 70% of the 725 people who voted on the referendum were in favor of the Constitution. And the Vancouver Canucks have announced they have signed Finnish goalie Kevin Lankinen to a 5-year contract. The extension comes with a $4.5 million average salary. The 29-year-old has appeared in 34 games this year with a 19-8-7 record. And that's the CBC News from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob, and thanks for joining us here for On the Coast. What a day. If you felt some shaking earlier today, it wasn't your imagination. It was an earthquake, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake centered in the Sunshine Coast area. We're going to hear more about that when we talk to the Emergency Preparedness Minister. And if you felt shaking yesterday, it was probably after Connor McDavid's overtime winner in the Four Nations Face-Off Championship against the United States. We're going to hear more about that game in just a moment. Yeah, you could hear the cheers right across the region last night with that overtime goal. It was quite a Canadian moment. I don't know. I felt really emotional. Again, someone who's very much a bandwagon fan. There was more to this game than hockey, and we all know that. And it was just such a fine moment. Such a fine moment with such a fine group of players, and their coach John Cooper was just such a class act. I just think from start to finish, it was just an amazing evening.
Yeah, and I think we're allowed to admit that there were probably some folks who were very glad they had the opportunity to kind of just go neener to the USA fans.
A little bit of that. You're right. Okay, I know you've got lots on your plate traffic-wise. Why don't you bring us up to date?
Well, we do have this crash in Vancouver at this time. Eastbound on Kingsway at Joyce Street, it's blocking the left lane. In Richmond, we're dealing with a crash on Highway 99 southbound near the Highway 91 overpass and the Westminster Highway overpass. The left lane is currently blocked. Waiting for updates on a crash in Surrey, southbound on 140th Street and 104th Avenue in the right lane. Crews are currently on scene. But the one that's causing the most headaches this afternoon, definitely what's currently happening on the Alex Fraser Bridge. There are reports of a crash blocking the left lane southbound and northbound at the south end of the bridge. Very heavily congested on the Alex Fraser right now, going in either direction. So use an alternate route if you're able to. Very slow going. It's not looking like the best choice. And we are also watching a stall on the McGill Street on-ramp to Highway 1 westbound. So as you're heading onto the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, the left lane is currently blocked. The traffic outside definitely seems to have more to do with the rain and the wet weather we have outside currently, rather than the shaking we experienced earlier. We have an email here from Greg who writes, "I was home and wondering what was happening, was ready to dive under a solid object. My dog reacted and the alert went off on my phone while the house was still shaking."
Well, it's true. It's been really interesting hearing from people right across the region just in terms of where they were, what they felt. Paolo writes in, there was clear shaking at a lab at work. He said, I work at the 3rd floor lab at UBC, and I was working at a fume hood, and all the glassware started shaking hard for 3 or 4 seconds. I held the doors with my hands, thinking it was only the HVAC system. Later, I heard it was an earthquake. Paolo, thank you very much. And Donna says, at the Watershed Grill in Brackendale near Squamish, the chairs that we were sitting on started jerking and shifting, and then a deep rumble rose up. It sounded like a train approaching. Someone asked if it was an earthquake, and then phone alerts immediately came in to confirm it. To credit the host, she ran around and called for everyone to take cover, although no one did. We watched as the windows shook and the building swayed. It was over in seconds, but it was very exciting, says Donna. Thanks very much for sharing that. You're welcome to weigh in as well on the coast at cbc.ca or send us a text 236-330-2623. So the important news from all of this is that there have been no widespread reports of injuries or significant damages. There's also no tsunami risk. Joining us now is Kelly Green, BC's Emergency Preparedness Minister. She joins us on the line from Steveston. Kelly Green, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so from your point of view, what happened today?
At 1:26 p.m., we had reported a 5.1 earthquake off the coast of Sechelt. We have not had any reports of any structural damage or injuries. And now is a really good time to think about getting that earthquake kit ready if you haven't done so already.
Okay, well, let's talk about communication at a time like this. We're getting a lot of questions from people who wonder why they got a cell phone alert, why they didn't get a cell phone alert, why they got a cell phone alert after it happened, like we've seen for other emergencies. What can you tell us about the alert system when it comes to earthquakes?
I've also had reports of uneven application of the emergency alert system for this earthquake. It is a federal system, so I will be reaching out to my federal counterpart to find ways that we can make sure that it works as expected so that people can stay safe.
Well, and how is it expected to work? I mean, how much notice would someone typically get and how helpful would that be?
Depending on the earthquake, you'd be able to get seconds to minutes of a heads up, but it depends on the earthquake itself. And so we want to make sure that the system is working properly so people have the most amount of time to duck, cover, and hold on that they can.
I see. Okay. So where should people be turning for up-to-date information? I mean, we were able to get on the air fairly quickly. My colleague Catherine Marlowe in Victoria, for example, here at the CBC Vancouver building, we went outside because we felt the shaking here. We weren't sure, is that it? And so our colleagues in Victoria kind of picked it up and got on the air relatively quickly. But if people aren't near a radio, where do you go for information?
My ministry would be able to communicate that through social media channels. But I think that it's a really good moment for us to think about personal preparedness. And so discovering what you should be doing in an earthquake while the earthquake is happening is not a very prudent plan. And so I'd recommend people to go visit Prepared BC to work on their earthquake plan with their family.
Prepared BC. And it's interesting, I've caught up with you in Steveston this afternoon, and we know what, Steveston, a lot of that is reclaimed land from the ocean as well. And liquefaction is a concern there. What more can you tell us about specific concerns in the Steveston area?
In many places in the South Coast area, we do have risk of liquefaction. So it's important that people understand the risk in the area that they are either living or working or playing, as the case may be. The advice is still to, if there is an earthquake, is drop and go under furniture that's sturdy and hold on to it until the shaking stops. When the shaking stops, count to 60 to make sure that there are no aftershocks that are coming, and then take yourself to a safe place. In this case, it was a very minor earthquake, which is a good reminder for us to get ready.
A little bit of a wake-up call for a lot of us, I think. Yeah, we were just wondering. We know what we should be doing. Is that what I think it was? That's, there's so much going through your mind, and then by the time you've kind of figured out that's what it was, it feels like it's done. Did you actually feel it? Did you get under a structure or something like that?
I did. I had actually gone home to settle my young son who isn't feeling well. And while I was doing that, we did feel the earthquake. And so we immediately went under the table and held onto the furniture. And I had him help me count to 60 so that he would be comfortable doing that if there was a more severe earthquake, that he'd be practiced in what to do.
We heard from a couple of school kids earlier this afternoon. We've been opening the lines and people have been calling in. We heard from someone in elementary school. I think she's in grade 6 or 7, and another young man who's in high school. And they said in both of those cases, nothing was done in their classrooms at Vancouver schools. Again, it happened, and then they think that must have been an earthquake after it happened, and then everything was quiet and they just went back to doing what they were doing. What goes through your mind when you hear that?
We definitely are hoping that people are taking this moment to practice their emergency plan, whether you're at home or at school or at work, that you do know what to do in case of an earthquake. We have an annual shakeout is what it's called, so that you can practice these things, but you don't need to wait. You can do it anytime. And getting your kit ready is a really important part of being personally prepared. And Prepared BC has got great information on how to do that.
I see. Well, what about the condition of our infrastructure? Concerns about bridges or tunnels or schools, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And the province has been very much invested in making sure that we're updating infrastructure to seismic capacity. For example, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure allocates an amount of their budget to doing seismic retrofits. I know here in Richmond is our hospital is not very resilient to earthquakes, and that's one of the reasons, as well as making sure we're providing excellent healthcare, that we're replacing almost the entire hospital. Schools are being repaired. In the last 7 years, we've been able to make 35,000 students more safe at school, plus all their teachers, staff, and the families that attend those schools. There is more work to be done, and we can see that it's very important to do that.
How much more work is to be done? How many more schools still have to be upgraded to become seismically sound?
There are more, and I'll be working with the Minister of Infrastructure to make sure that we're being very diligent on that file.
It's interesting. We do have a statement from the City of Vancouver earlier today that says today's event calls for a level 1 response under the city's earthquake response plan. This includes immediate inspection of our bridges by the city's structural engineering consultants, and that process is now underway. So this is just one event. Thankfully, no one is hurt, no significant damage that we know of so far. Again, this is a question I've been asking people throughout the afternoon. How much of a wake-up call is this for Metro Vancouverites and for people in BC?
I think it's definitely a wake-up call. I'm very grateful that this wasn't the big one. I'm sure everybody at home feels the same way. And it is a really good time to get ready because we are expecting a big one. And so regardless of whether it's your home plan, your work plan, your school plan, is to have a plan. What do I do in an earthquake? How do I make myself and my family safer? And there are important steps to take, and working with friends and family to get those done is maybe a fun weekend activity people can undertake.
Well, again, and having that plan, because we were hearing from someone who was in New Zealand when there was a big earthquake there a few years back, and communication was down. So you better have a plan. Where are we going to meet? Don't just get into your car, that kind of thing. Kelly Green, we appreciate your time. I'm sure there'll be opportunity to follow up on this in the near future.
Thanks very much.
Kelly Green is BC's Emergency Preparedness Minister, and you are listening to On the Coast. And over on the Sunshine Coast, when the earthquake hit, a group of parents and school staff at Roberts Creek Elementary, they used an app called Pack Animal, and it helped them get the word out between staff and parents that the kids at the school had safely evacuated the building. So here to talk more about what happened there at Roberts Creek Elementary is Kate Kowalchuk. Kate, hi there. Good afternoon.
Hi, Gloria. How are you?
I'm
Pleasure
doing.
to meet you.
And how are you? I guess take us through your experience with the earthquake, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm more nervous to be on the radio with you right now. I grew up with CBC Radio in our kitchen my whole life, so I'm a bit more nervous about that than the earthquake itself. But
this won't hurt a bit. I assure you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Well, the earthquake happened. I was at home, and I connected with Mr. Knight, our amazing school principal at Roberts Creek Elementary. And he on the Sunshine Coast, SD 46, and he had evacuated the kids onto the field and gave me details that all the children and staff are safe, and the children were evacuated to the field. We were able to post the pickup and bus details, and notify the whole parent body within minutes of the earthquake happening, all on a secure FOIPA-compliant app that parents have on their cell phones. So we were so relieved that we could notify everyone so quickly and that everyone was safe.
My goodness, that sounds so efficient. So when did this app come into your lives, and how and why?
Well, we have a wonderful group of parents on PAC at the Roberts Creek Elementary, and we started a universal breakfast program. And this was a way to fundraise. We have Feeding Futures funding, which has been great. But to ensure food gets to all the children each morning, we use Pack Animal as a fundraising tool to raise money for the program. And then it also has a news feed with keyword search, so parents are informed what's going on in the school, how they can help, and we're just connected and a closer community. And the communication's instant. So.
Well, my goodness, it seems ideal. I mean, so looking back at it all, could you have done anything differently, or you're just completely satisfied with the way that all unfolded?
We're thrilled that everyone was safe and we got the communication out swiftly. So, yeah, we're really happy how it played out. And, we've had situations in the past where our network has been down and unable to receive emails from the district occasionally. And so Pack Animal has been used in the past. We had that big windstorm on the coast, and we were able to communicate to parents safe routes, bus rescheduling, all the information that usually gets fed through the front desk, but in this case, it just goes right through the app. So it's been really exciting. It's been a new project relatively, and it's working. So we're thrilled.
Kate, I'm sure there are ears perking up across the region saying,
so.
with PAC saying we've got to get that Pack Animal working for us. I mean, what are some of the takeaways or advice for others in light of your experience?
I would just say streamlining communication is key. And we have an amazing relationship as a PAC with our administration at Roberts Creek Elementary. Mr. Knight, Duncan, has just really been very supportive. I guess with him understanding the importance of communication and connection within our community. So, it really brings us all together, and it's worked well for us. I encourage other PACs to reach out and get in touch so that we can help them out also.
Well, I'm so glad it worked out for you, and I think this may be a model for others as well. And Kate, you did really well in your first radio interview. Really nice to have you with us today.
Gloria, thank you.
You take good care. Thank you.
Take care. We're glad everyone's safe and sound. Thank you.
That is Kate Kowalchuk, parent on the Sunshine Coast at Roberts Creek Elementary, part of the PAC there. And she was just talking with us about how a group of parents and school staff at that school, Roberts Creek Elementary, used an app, the Pack Animal, PAC, Pack Animal app, to help notify parents that their kids were safe. Okay, 4:52 right now. Steve, where are we at with traffic slowdowns?
Right now, Gloria, the one that's causing the most headaches is this crash on the Alex Fraser Bridge. It looks like it's blocking the left lane, both southbound and northbound. It happened at the south end of the bridge. Very, very heavy delays on the Alex Fraser right now. Use an alternate route if you're able to. We're also watching a stall on the McGill Street on-ramp to Highway 1 westbound. So if you're heading onto the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, bear in mind you will have some delays there. The left lane is currently blocked. No tsunami risk following today's earthquake, and ferry sailings look like they're intact. But if you are traveling from the Horseshoe Bay or Langdale terminals, bear in mind you could have some delays there as they conduct inspections on the terminal infrastructure. I'll have more updates coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you. And hearing from lots of you, Suzel says, some people felt it here on Hornby Island, but I did not. Some parts of the island, depending on what kind of soil they're sitting on, really felt it. Thank you. And Brian in Port Moody says, I was in my car on Lougheed near the Coquitlam Centre, stopped at a light. The car started rolling and rocking. I looked for a large truck that must be causing it. And as it stopped, the alarm played on CBC radio announcing the earthquake, says Brian. Thanks to all of you for sharing your perspectives and experiences with us throughout the afternoon. Really, really great to have you in on the conversation. But the other big story of the week is the fact that some of us are still riding high after Team Canada's victory over the United States in hockey last night. And wow, what a game. This Four Nations Championship final, it had it all. Incredible goals, incredible saves, and thankfully, pretty good sportsmanship to top it off. But in a time of tense political tensions with our neighbors to the south, what does this mean when we come together to play sports? Can it possibly help mend our diplomatic differences? Our next guest is someone who has these conversations on a regular basis. Jennifer Willinga is a professor at Royal Roads in Communication and Culture. She's also a former Team Canada rower, and she's on the line right now. Jennifer, hello there.
Hello, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
What was your, should I ask about the earthquake or the hockey game? I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Right? We're vibrating no matter what. Yeah, I'm over in Vancouver right now, actually watching the Rugby Sevens tournament, and enjoyed watching our women beat Brazil earlier, but they'll have lots of other games. So those are the only things we felt were the reverberations of the hits. I see. No, you didn't feel any shaking. It was just the excitement of the game. Okay, let's talk about last night's game. How did you experience the game? With friends and family and community. I was at a local pub, and everyone, of course, was glued to the set. We had a bunch of university students down there wearing their jerseys, and it was a great atmosphere. Personally, I just had so much confidence. I loved the way they came out with pure focus and no intention, of course, with the fights, like the last game that they played against the U.S., which seemed to be more about entertaining crowds or something. But this time it really seemed like they were just there to play, and I could tell they were on a mission. Well, they're on a mission, right? Because this was more than a hockey game, right? I think a lot of Canadians felt a little sense of extra satisfaction beating the U.S. at this time. What do you think? Should we feel a little bit guilty about feeling that way? I loved what my daughter said. She said this was a win for the world. And I thought it was so insightful because it really was like we were not only defending against, tariffs and potential annexation, but kind of defending neighborliness, friendship, equity and respect, and just upholding actually what I think sport upholds, which is that you're there to compete with, you need your opponents. And the guys get that. I love what Mitch Marner said when they challenged him to kind of take pot shots at his teammate, Austin Matthews, in regular season. And he said, no, he's my guy, man. You don't understand that this is what this stuff's about. We get to play with the guys we love. Well, that's interesting. And given that so many Canadians play in the States and vice versa. So what was your sort of overall read of good sportsmanship or not? And I say that on the ice and in the stands. Yeah, I loved it. And I mean, you can't see everything happen in the stands, and I'm sure there was some antagonism and adversity, but and the booing, right, of our national anthem. But again, I think that sport, like, things can get chippy, and the key to really high performers are those who are able to keep playing, be wily, be aware that you're perhaps going to be challenged or there's some tension in the air, but you got to play through that and keep the focus on the game and on your job out there, which is to perform at your very best. I thought the Canadians were amazing. McKinnon in particular, like, you think of how many times, not very often, but every once in a while I got a little bit chippy, and he would just wrap up the player on the other team, smile, and just put an end to it all. Hold back anyone that was threatening to have some sort of altercation. And then you think one penalty, hey, that was amazing. Yeah, so you're right. Both teams did a great job. Yeah, I woke up with a smile too, just thinking back, just like I felt we needed that collectively. We needed that. Absolutely. Jennifer, a real pleasure. You take good care. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Take care. That's Jennifer Willinga, professor at Royal Roads in Communication and Culture, a former Team Canada rower. We needed that. We really did. Steve, what are you watching out there?
Well, there's still this crash on the Alex Fraser Bridge. It's blocking the left lane, both southbound and northbound at the south end of the span. Very heavy delays on the Alex Fraser this afternoon. Use an alternate route if you're able to. Don't go anywhere near the Alex Fraser until this gets resolved. In Surrey, the lights are flashing red at 88th Avenue and Scott Road. Crews have been notified about this. Hopefully they'll have it fixed soon. There's also a stall on the McGill Street on-ramp to Highway 1 westbound. Heading onto the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, the left lane is currently blocked. I'll have more updates coming up after the news.
Steve, thank you very much. We've got a rainy forecast for the next several days. Weekend highs around the 12-degree mark. Stay with us. More on the earthquake, and we'll tell you about a party in Nanaimo where thousands of people are invited by one man.